He has 20 years of expertise running and developing companies and working with over 35% of the Fortune 500. Currently, he's collaborating with industry leaders to merge the future focus of agile improvement processes with the people side of the equation. So, let's give it a hand.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, good. Thank you so much for coming and showing up. That's always nice. And thanks also for showing up to the conference and being open to discussing project management and how we can do it and how we can do it better. I like coming to conferences like this where I'm not the expert in that field or whatever, because what it gives me a chance to do is talk about how we can converge fields or start talking about that convergence. And one of the things that I realize about psychologists, so if I'm up here and everyone's like, first thing is that they think that I'm like for home life psychology. No, I don't know that stuff. I deal with industrial psychology, which is the study of businesses and psychology in the business place, if you will. And the second thing is that people think, well, okay, psychologists don't have anything to say because on TV what they do, psychologists are either sleeping with their patients or telling their secrets or something like that, and it's just like, I'm always like, oh, this is terrible because we have to overcome that. But basically what an industrial psychologist is, or what I am trying to do is 2 or 3 things. One, I am a scientist first and foremost, okay, so I believe in research, I believe in data, I believe in bringing those data together with the understanding of the business world so that it makes some sense. The second thing that's important to me is that I realized a long time ago that psychologists can't talk to business people hardly at all because they're always talking about weird psychology stuff and they're not bringing the world over to the business people. And so instead of making you try to learn the world of psychology today or anything like that, I want you to understand that I'm going to put this in as much business terms as I possibly can and work off of that. I have maybe 50 minutes, maybe an hour at the most, if I stretch it, of me talking. There's also, I also will leave about 15 to 20 minutes at the end for questions. But I want you to ask the questions in the middle of this. Okay, let's make this as interactive as you want. It's 3:30, it's late in the day. Maybe they got me because I'm loud and I'll keep you awake. I don't know. But if you have any questions, raise your hand and let me know. And if I don't want to answer it right then, I'll say, let me hold off on that. But I'll come back and point it to you and say, you asked that question, here's that answer. And we'll work off of that. And I do try to do that. As far as I appreciate Nancy introducing me. I am a licensed industrial organizational psychologist. Been working in business for about 20 years. I'm currently in a role called co-founder of a company called Convergent LLC. I'll speak about that in just a second here in a minute. But basically, I've worked with industry for the last 20 years. I've conducted a whole bunch of projects and change management initiatives. I do want you to understand a few of my biases though, okay? So everybody has biases. I do want you to understand mine so that I'm perfectly clear and you know where I'm coming from. Number one, I do believe in measurement, okay? I believe in gathering data. I believe in using those data to understand what's going on and to understand it better and more completely, if you will. The second thing that is a bias of mine is I absolutely believe that projects can be managed and projects can be completed, software can be finished, and the people screw it up almost all the time, okay? And that's a true bias of mine that, the best laid plans, once you put people involved, they don't work, they don't work like code. They don't work, they don't do exactly what they're supposed to do every single time. And I think that's an important piece to understand. And what I'm going to try to do today, my third bias, is to get people to understand that people side. Because what I've heard a lot of today in the session so far is, hey, that culture thing's kind of important. Or, hey, the people side of things is starting to be important. And so I hear people talking about it, okay? I hear the words coming out of their mouth. But when you talk to them and say, do you have a systematic way of measuring that, of doing that, of making that come to life? Well, no, not really. What's the, most of the culture people, they say, learn about your values. Well, what is it? Well, go sit in a dark room with a candle and you know, the first 5 things that come to mind, that's your values. Well, no, there's better ways to do that. And so what I'm going to try to do today is bring science to this process so that you understand that we do have that capacity, and we do have the capacity to bring some rigor and some statistical understanding to the workplace and what we're trying to do here. The other piece that I think is really, really important here, and this is kind of one of my biases, because you think of industrial psychologists, you might think of, oh, they're those people, or they're you know, they're kind of like human resources. And the funny thing is what we're doing here today, and what Convergent itself is trying to do is, you know, in a lot of ways, human resources has failed us because there's this interpersonal thing going on, and they haven't brought the answers to us. They haven't brought the things that they need to bring to us. So whether, you know, if you're in an IT scenario doing, you know, moving from waterfall to agile, how cool would that be to have the IT world? You know, we're supposed to be in the closet nerd in a way. How cool would it be if they make this interpersonal jump before human resources? Okay, so that's kind of my, you know, thumb in my nose at some other parts of the organization, saying we need to control this because other people, quite frankly, haven't, and they haven't done that for us. Convergent LLC is the company I just co-founded. I've co-founded it with 2 other guys. I'm an industrial psychologist. I clearly try to bring the people side to the business. We've got a guy with 25 years of agile consulting around the culture stuff. It's Brett Gibson, and so he brings in the idea of lean, you know, all the lean principles and things of that nature. And we have Nathan Lagergren, who's had 15, 20 years in the banking finance industry, if you will, helping organizations run the business side of things. And so we're bringing together people with process, with business, and pulling and converging that into a single entity that we think is going to bring a little bit more rigor to the game and really help you maximize. And we're going to talk today about a few things that we've worked on, and a few ways that we interact with our clients so that you understand how we bring things to the table and what we try to do. As far as the objectives, I'm pretty much going to follow what I wrote in the thing that you received, and we're going to try and understand any sort of paradigm shifts that are going on in project management. Paul Carlton and I talked about that. He thought that was a very important point to make, and so we're going to address that. And so up front, there will be a little bit of research stuff and a little bit of here's kind of the paradigm shift that may be going on in project management. We're going to use a 2x2 matrix, and I'm going to show you a really simple way to kind of start thinking about the people side of those projects you're managing and what I can do with that people side and how quickly I can do something with it. Okay, it's kind of surface level, it's easy to use, but it's the kind of thing you can take away from here tomorrow and do something with it. Okay, and while I think that you should probably be more rigorous than that, I think it's a great first start, a good brush stroke to kind of give you an idea of what's going on with my project, how can I make it go better, what can I do with this, how can I think of that people side of the business. We'll talk about future activities as well, so that's what that third point was that I just made. Personally, I'll talk a little bit about project success and what that can look like for you. I can also talk about I'll talk a little bit about your own personal value system and how that might impact the kind of projects you want to work on and the kind of stuff you want to do. So I'm going to take it professionally, and I'm going to try and take it a little bit personally so that you can get a little bit out of it for yourself as well. Did everyone sign up for that? Is there something else we want to talk about? I'm open, so I mean, it's your time. I'd be good with that. So anyway, we're good. Let's talk about project management today. Basically, what I've done is on the left side I've put what maybe, and yes, it's gross exaggeration, and yes, I've polarized very hard. I've done that to make a point, okay? Let's not take anything too gosh awful seriously in here. But basically, your traditional project management has been about the processes, the tools, the procedures. And there's some control that's associated with that. Let's plan and plan and plan. And if people aren't doing what we want them to do, there's a process we can do to make them do what we want them to do. And we can control what they do by measurement and things of that nature. And I have no problem. Again, my bias is measurement. It has a lot to do with planning and organizing. It's a lot to do with attention to detail. very logical, it's very rational, it's very analytical, which is if we can only put another process in place, we can get people to move the way that we want them to, okay? And the paradigm shift is supposed, and like I said, I've heard of it a lot today in almost every presentation I've gone to, but the paradigm shift now is over to kind of the people side of that, perhaps the culture piece of that. Okay, we just heard Richard, I think, if you were in here for the last session, talk about that right at the end of it. He talked about the people piece of it and the interactional piece, and what that looks like. And harnessing these resources and really engaging the people, if you will. So it's not just a process, but which people and which part of the process and when and how and where can they go with that. And that's that merger of what my field can bring, what your field does on a day-to-day basis. And so there's interpersonal skills that are associated with that. There's cultural awareness. This makes people engage. And now we're talking about engagement. We're talking about flexibility. So instead of lots of control and lots of process to box things up, we're talking about what does the thing actually want to do and how can we harness that energy. Okay, because for me, one of my biases, I don't know if I stated this up front, is that whether it's project management or or any sort of intervention that we do in an organization, to me is true change. Okay, and Convergent, we call ourselves change management. Okay, so whether a company is saying we want our salespeople to be more proactive in sales, okay, or they're saying we used to do things this way, the business necessitates that we do it this way. Whether it's we're moving from waterfall to agile, okay? Any of those kinds of things is true change management. And when there's change involved, from the people side of that standpoint, there's 3 different types of energy that can be exerted, if you will. I can try to change myself to come over to where the company wants me. My company can put energy into trying to get to pull me over there, or I can put energy into resisting. Okay? So again, I can try and get myself over there, so do things differently than natural. How many of you are either right? How many of you are right-handed? Raise your hand. A bunch of you, right? How many of you just accidentally pick up a pen with your left hand and write? You don't, do you? Because it would feel weird and awkward, okay? We have natural tendencies as people too, as our behaviors and our personal characteristics, and we don't change them a whole lot. And so to try myself to say, okay, they actively want me to communicate daily with the client versus just send them an email, or to get in front of them, or to do this, or to do that, that's energy. And now I have to do something that's harder than that's hard. And remember those things that we try and we're not there, because it's hard to do, and it feels like it takes a ton of energy to do the things we hate, but it takes almost no energy to do the things we like. The things we like go really, really fast. That's because that's natural energy expenditure. When we're doing things we don't want to do, that's hard. Okay, so that's that first piece, is me trying to will myself to do things differently than what I've done in the past. Then the organization can try to get me over there through motivations or controls, attention to details, planning, a lot of that kind of stuff. And then the third piece is I can resist it. I can say, no, I'm going to just keep doing what I'm doing. I'll not tell you what I'm going to do, but I'm just not going to follow it. I'm going to shake my head and say yes to you a lot. And then when you leave, I'm going to forget every word you just said. And these are the people side of things that we see every single day. And we're thinking to ourselves, this project would be so much better if they get on board. Or if their boss would be on board. Or if you yell at them and tell them to be on board. Or if she would say this to them and make them do this, that, or the other. And we talk about those things. And my belief to you is that you have a lot of the capacity to take care of some of that stuff on your own. Okay? I'd love to worry about the other people, but I'm worried about the people in this room and what we can do to impact our own success. Questions? So you can, and the other piece of project management that I think is really interesting is kind of how we decide what we're going to do or where we're going to go. Okay, and I just have 2 real simple examples for this, and it's an example that a couple of my friends wrote. But basically, there were 2 organizations, and they were trying to get CPO, and they're trying to get employee engagement up. And so and they both decided at some point in time, and I'm kind of making this up, but they both decided at some point in time that the CEO should show he cares about the organization and he's one of the people. And so he's gonna make a cake and serve it to his team and these people and that. And this is goofy HR stuff, right? And that's what they kind of do. But anyway, so now we have a project in front of us, which is making a cake, right? And one organization, what they do is they say, oh, my CEO never comes and talks to me, and now I'm going to be right in front of him. I need to make the best project that I possibly can make, and the best thing that I can ever do. And so what they do is they say, I'm going to build a world-class process. Okay? And so I'm going to benchmark. I'm going to call all the cake manufacturers in the world, the top 5 that make cakes. I'm saying, what do you do that's so good? And I'm going to study all these best practices and pull those things together. And then I'm going to learn about all the different ways people make cakes and why they're good and why they're not, and what works and what doesn't. And from there, I'm going to consult with some renowned leaders. I'm going to call some chefs and do some stuff with them and talk about it. And then now I've got all this expertise in this stuff. So I'm relying on this instead of maybe some of this. And I create a 73-page instruction manual talking in intricate detail about how to put together a cake and how to do that. There's 124 different ingredients and pieces, and there's spoons and beaters and stuff, and eggs and flour. There's 7 different groups involved in this within the organization because we needed to talk to these guys because they're an expert at this, and these people because they're an expert at that. And it takes about less than 100 hours to do. Okay? And that's what happens in a lot of scenarios when we're managing projects, is we want to cover every single base. And by covering every single base, we make this stuff really, really hard. Okay? And we want to make sure we control this one aspect. These people may not like this, so let's put a big process in place. And this group will like this, but not that, so let's put another process in place. And this is going to happen here, let's put this practice in and do that. And then it's so damn hard, you can't explain it, and people can't do it. Tale of the second CEO initiative is company 2, and this person says, okay, building a cake isn't really what we're trying to do here, okay? We're not trying to build the best cake in the world. What we're trying to do is get people to say, hey, the CEO's kind of cool, and he did some stuff. And we want her to be happy, and so we want her to do this and that. And so now I've developed a plan to meet the heart of the goal. Okay, what's really going on? It's not that the CEO made the coolest cake in the world. It's that he put some time, and she put some time, energy, and effort into it. Okay? And then I realized, okay, this person is busy, and they can't do a lot of stuff, and they can't go through a lot of things for us. And so I need to develop a very easy plan, because, this person will run out of patience. Right? We have executives. I got 10 minutes before you go. Okay, that's it. And so then what I do is, instead of having all these different ingredients, I realize that really there's 2 or 3 bowls and there's stuff, and I could actually pre-mix the stuff, and then it'll all be ready for this person, and that makes implementation easier. I have 1 set of instructions, it's 1 page, 5 pre-packaged pieces, dump 1, dump number 2, and mix those together, dump number 3, and do this, that, and it takes less than 1 hour. Which one is the CEO actually going to be even close or remotely close to doing? Okay? Yeah, and that wasn't a real question, Aaron, sorry. You were right. I'm just teasing, I'm sorry, but no. And the same thing that happens in like human resources, I think happens a lot in project management as well, is that we're under such a desire to have some level of control over things that we make it a little bit too sophisticated, and we're not thinking in terms of what's the heart of the matter. What are we really trying to do versus what's the outcome look like? And we're not always taking the people side, like when I implement this software, people are going to have to do something differently. They're going to have to do a lot of things differently. Okay. True example. One of my clients is a company called Fisher Titus Medical Center. Also true. They were the first hospital in the world to implement paperless, the whole paperless technology. Third piece is very, very true. They did it through Cerner here in Kansas City. So I'm very proud of it. That's cool. I know there's some Cerner people here as well. The biggest difficulty they have at Fisher Titus, or they had, was that the nurse managers who had quit nursing, who hadn't been on the floor in 20 years, they've been just supervising others, were now in charge of creating the processes for these people to follow. And so they hadn't seen how nurses actually did their work for 20 years. And now they always used paper. And now they're not using paper, and they're creating a process for these people on the floor to follow on a day-to-day basis. And it's just not, I mean, the software worked beautifully. CERT did absolutely everything they were supposed to do. They did it on time and within budget, too. And they delivered every single bit of everything that they needed to build in and work off of that. What we did was we came in and we started working on how the organization adopted it. And that's a people thing. And us as project managers, if we can start thinking more in terms of the people side of this, and what are people going to have to do later that they don't have to do now? And how easy can I make it to make that transition? How can I help the energy expenditure be as small and as efficient and as easy as possible? Does that make sense? Is there any questions? Yeah, project management definition. This is pretty straightforward. It's a deliberately planned effort to increase an organization's efficiency or effectiveness. Okay, that's my easy, very simple definition of project management. It is not things. Okay, so it's not training. It's not personal development or team. It's not just those things. It may be part of that. That may be some aspect of it. It may be development or learning or training. But it's not necessarily those things on its own. Okay, project management is bigger than that. It's got more pieces to it. And if it's about change, which is what I said, it's about people. It's also about those processes. It's about those systems and those structures that person has to deal with. So this is basically summing up my Cerner story and summing up the Kate story, helping you understand that if we, as professionals, start taking all those pieces into consideration, we're going to have much better success rates, we're going to have much better adoption rates, we're going to have a lot of people who are much more willing to do the things that we're asking them to do because the energy expenditure doesn't seem large, right? We can get people to think the energy expenditure is this versus this. You know, the old rah-rah, you can get there. It only works for like maybe a week. And then they look at where they're really going and where you want them to go, and they realize how much work it's going to be. And they make their decision right there. Okay? Your world, a thought process. I want you to just take, this will give me a chance to drink a little bit of water, but I want you to take maybe 1 or 2 minutes, and I'm asking kind of 3 different questions, which is what's the prevailing approach to project management, or what I call change, as practiced in your organization or at your current client if you happen to be a consultant. What's your view? How is your view of project management changing? More specifically, the one I think is most interesting is what one factor most seriously undermines your project management initiatives. Okay, I want you to take maybe 1 or 2 minutes, and I want a couple hands being raised. I'll call on you if you don't raise your hand. So just think about that, and just let me understand what one factor do you think most seriously undermines project management success in your organization. Anyone want to speak up? Buy-in. Okay.
Getting people to be committed and not just comply.
Mm-hmm. Like, what do I have to do versus will I do this on my? Yeah. Okay. Good. Someone else have their hands up? Fear of change. Waterfall to agile. Why do we have to do this? Why is this new? Fear of change. Okay. Other ones, different ones. Distrust between team members. Okay, I've got to now count on this guy versus being an individual, which I've done most of my life, and now all of a sudden I'm going to be judged by what they do as well as me, and that can be scary. Yeah? Okay, someone else is raising their hand right there. Yeah. Okay, back to the kind of the planning piece though as well, and your point is well taken, because without a plan, this thing can suck really, really bad. Okay, so they, your clients decide that every shiny object is your new priority, and they work off of that. And so how do we manage them, and what does that look like? Yeah, that's good. Any other ones? Just one or two quick more? Someone over here, please. Eric.
Always got a power struggle between the guy who thinks he knows and those that have to do it.
Guy who thinks he knows, and the power struggle between, and that's energy expenditure, right? You should be doing this. We're doing this every day. This is a better direction. So now we don't even agree on where we're supposed to be spending our energy. So this person is pulling all of our energy northeast, and I want to pull it northwest, and it's not even working right, or southwest, which would be even worse. But yeah, okay. One more, anybody? And you see, other than, well, no, every single one of those was a people issue, wasn't it? I mean, even the CEO or the executive that can't get there, when we complain, so when we succeed, what happens? Probably we planned well and these people naturally get it, or we truly have struck on helping them the way they want to be helped and help them expend energy they want to be expending. Where do we have difficulty? When the energy expenditures go awry. Do this, oh crud, now we're doing that. Or let's fight over the right way, or let's do this, or let's do that. Those are all people issues. Those are the things that keep you from success, keep you from succeeding. Okay, and so, yeah, I'll move on from that. No, I'll go back to it. I don't know if these estimates are right. These things come out a lot, but you know, some estimates say that 70% of all PM initiatives fail, or they don't live up to the expectation, or they don't get to the level of good that's sold when they start the project. And I don't know if that's the right number or not. And when you talk to just general people out there, a lot of times it's executive, and this group hasn't said that really, which is kind of nice, but it's a lot of people say it's the executive. My executive didn't tell me that was the right thing. He or she didn't truly back it. And so where can we get to from there? And I think that's real. I think that's a real issue, but it's just one. And then the execution follow through. Did we follow through enough? And that's a very planning and process driven kind of focus. Did I give enough processes and put enough control in place where I could succeed? Buddy of mine, Dr. Jerry Smith, says, yeah, you need sponsorship, buy-in, and follow through, but you also need willing organizational participants, and that's that energy exchange. That's that energy willingness to move back and forth. A company called Quanta Consulting also put out failure to learn and failure to adapt, which was there's a fear of failure over here and people not moving where they needed to go. And those things are culture, right? Those are willingness to do that and go down that path. And so those are some of the early definitions of what I would call culture. Is that failure to learn, failure to adapt, some of those kinds of things. Yeah, I'm not going to go through this really because it's pretty straightforward, but change is change of movement. Okay, and so if we start thinking not in terms of the project or the software or the thing that I'm creating, but instead we think in terms of we're moving this group of people from this to this. Now all of a sudden we've got more than just the project, we've got more than just the plan, we've got more than just that, and so now we can start tracking the more, we can measure the more. We can put in many and realize that this is a multifaceted initiative versus there's these storyboards to create this change, and this is what's going to happen today, and this process will be. Okay, and that changes the PM role as well. It changes them from expert to kind of coach and guide. It'll change them from event-based to experience-based and logical. They'll keep going all down that path. This is an extension of what I just said in terms of working back and forth as you know, in terms of change. Okay, so what convergent believes, and what I truly believe, and I've spent most of my career trying to perfect, is that if you can link people to the project, to business's success, that hybrid model is the best way to succeed. It's the best way to get there. And that your business success piece is what you were just talking about, where we even know where we need to go and what will make our business successful. And so your project should link to the bottom line of the organization. Okay, you guys know that. Project should link to culture and the culture of change. Okay, I want to know if I'm going to try and implement software in this part of the organization, or I'm going to put a new process in place that the people are willing to do it. So if they're unwilling to do it, or they're not going to change, all my work's going to go to nothing. And I want to know that about the people there, or the people that I'm changing from waterfall to agile. How many of them are really willing? You know, we already heard fear of failure as part of it. What percent of them is afraid to fail and won't even move? And our point would be is that we do what we call a whole person analysis. We do analysis on individuals, we do analysis on the group. I'll show you an easy 2x2 here in a second to get you there so that you can start thinking in terms of how fast can this project go? Okay, because the executive with the shiny object problem also has a timing problem, right? Because it's like, well, when do you need that? Well, yesterday, but I'm working on this. Yeah, they're both really, really important. Well, what, you know, okay, but which one's more important? Yeah, they're both really important, and they just repeat themselves and make you just kind of sit there and, okay, I don't get this. So you worry about that and get off of that tangent. So let's talk about what I mean by success being determined by the people. Okay, so now, dorky kind of researchy Jared with all his studies and stuff is going. Okay, we're going to talk about practical application and what we can do on a day-to-day or minute-to-minute basis at this point. And for us, when we're talking about the person, when we're talking about people in these organizations who are going to have change done to them, put on them, take part in the movement of that, we think in terms of 5 big chunks. Okay, the first chunk is that gray one on the top left, which has to do with, do they know what they need to know? Okay, have they been educated? What is their training? What's their experience? What does that look like? And that's an important piece, but it's also pretty much easy to understand and define. The pieces that I think are much more interesting is this blue one down here at the bottom, which has a lot to do with culture, satisfaction, fit, what I'm motivated by. Organizations provide certain motivations. People are motivated by certain things. Some organizations are the best payers. Some people are motivated by money. Okay? Some organizations have the coolest, newest technology. Some people are motivated by playing with cool new technology. Some organizations are very social and we have fun and we drink beer on Friday or something. And some people like to be social and have fun and drink beer on Friday. Okay? And when the organization provides me what I want, everybody's happy. And when they don't, I'm not quite so happy. And I may look for a role somewhere else or look for it elsewhere. That's important, and this blue piece is important when you start getting to those people who don't want to use their energy. What things can I say to this person to help them understand that if they go down this path, their motivations and what they're motivated by and what they value and what they are driven by will actually get met. Now we're making business cases for groups of people in the organization, why it's cool for them to make that change. Yeah, you got fear, but here's what's going to come out of it. Oh, I never thought of it that way. Yeah, well now you have, and let's see what we can do about it. Okay, the far right side, the green and the red, that's both kind of personality, if you will. There's positive personality or work traits or style or behaviors, things I do on a day-to-day basis that facilitate job performance and help me get my way. And then there's red pieces about the negative side of things. What do I do when the proverbial crap's hitting the fan? Okay, or what do I do in novel situations, situations of uncertainty, or situations of change? Okay? We all know people who are really mild and easy-mannered, and then when things don't go their way, they start yelling and screaming, right? We've all seen that. Or people who are kind of loose and flexible until you show them your end product, and then they nitpick the small details. Or people who say they're way up here and strategic, but the minute they come around, they swoop in and start doing stuff, right? That's the difference between that green and red piece, and we think it's important to understand both of those, because as we're going through a change process, this red piece, that's what I call the derailment characteristics. It's like a raging development, or raging derailment characteristics. I mean, their dark side is really coming out. We want to see that. The dark side's kind of psychological. I'm sorry about that. I don't mean anything there. And then finally, the judgment, the yellow piece. I want to know how a person solves problems, makes decisions, and in general, moves forward in their decision-making process. And so what I've done here is I've said, what's in a person's heart? That's the blue piece, right? What do they do on a day-to-day basis to get that? That's the green piece. What do they do to screw it up? Because we get in our own way a lot of times. That's the red piece. And how am I using my brain on a day-to-day basis to solve problems and make decisions? That's what we call a whole person approach. That's what we call a full body MRI. That's what we call pulling all those things together. What do we do in a lot of situations? We can administer an assessment in about 30 minutes or so that will touch on all these pieces. Okay, so a lot of times when you're starting a project, you interview people, right? We think of the assessment as an online interview that they can do, at home in their underwear at night instead of having to be in the office and interact with you. And it's one piece of data that we gather and collect on the people that are associated with the projects that we're working on. And what can you do? You can start taking a look at a few of those, but I'm going to show you an easier way to get around it so that you don't have to become kind of experts in the field that we work in, okay? But before I get there, I'm going to talk a little bit about what I call the 30-30-30. And you remember the 3 different ways you can expend energy, right? Some people want to, some people, they need to be pulled over it, some people are going to resist it. Well, after 30 years or 20 years of change management, what I realize is that the world falls up in about 30-30-30 all the time. Okay, so every project I've ever implemented, every change management program I've ever been through, every process that I've ever tried to change and work off of, about 30% of the people love the new way of doing things. They're like, oh, thank God, we're finally going to do it right. Right? Right's their idea that they can do that. About 30% say, this is kind of cool and this is kind of cool, and as long as they leave that alone, I'm all right. 30% of them, whether loudly or quietly, say, no effing way, I'm not going to do this. Sorry, that's a technical term, but yeah. And they'll ignore, limit, or work against that idea regardless of your efforts. Regardless of your efforts. Wouldn't it be nice to know who those people are? Now you can start deciding how you spend your energy. Which of those groups you want to spend your energy with? Well, that top group first, right? And then once you find 5 or 6 successes, you're going to start hitting on that middle group, right? Now what do we do with the third group? Well, if we're a large, big organization, we have choices. Maybe there's legacy systems that they can keep working on and doing it the same way they've all. Maybe there's other things that they can do. Maybe we have real talks with them and start saying, hey, in this organization, this is what we do, and you're not doing that. Maybe we start having, there's all the crucial conversations or, all that stuff that you've been taught around that kind of stuff. Maybe this is a spot to use it on that last 30%. Okay? And there's real life examples, and people always ask me, where's the other 10%? And I say, well, it's easier to say 30-30-30 than it is 33-33-33. And so that's part of it. But the other part is we're human beings still, okay? And I'm not here to say that we're programmatic or that, everyone always acts one way. There's still wonderful, there's 15,000 behaviors that we can exhibit. And I want to understand some of those, but only a couple of them that matter to project management. The rest of that person is free to vary and do whatever the heck they want to do or how they want to do it. And that makes us interesting, that makes us human, that's the infallible part that we like, as long as people aren't bumbling our project, right? And so that's where the other 10% goes to, okay? And so basically, I talked about a 2x2 matrix. What we do is we go back and we get what we call a full body MRI on a person, okay? And then what we take a look at is does this person value change, or are they resistant to it? Okay. And when they're working on a change environment, do they pay attention to details and do a lot of stuff and get convoluted, or are they flexible and willing to go with the flow? When the stress starts hitting them, do they revert back to their old ways, or do they start doing things that will impact the process negatively? And is their problem-solving style open to innovation, open to thinking about new things, open to doing things differently? So we take a look at all that, and this is me being a nerdy scientist. I put it all together. We've created algorithms, but basically what we've done is we've created algorithms along the concept of what's this person's propensity for change, which you need if we used to do this and we're going to do this, right? And the second thing is what's their propensity for collaboration, working with others to make this change happen. Now these aren't the only 2 variables out there. Like I said, we're looking at a lot of a person. But what we do is we pull together up front on that group of people that we're going to do a change with or that we're doing a project with, and we say, who is whom? Right? And then you can kind of think of it with high up to the top and the right, and low down to the left. There's 4 different types of people. I hate types, but in a 4x4 kind of cheesy square model, it's true. There's those rugged people. They have no desire to change and no desire to collaborate. And while they're rugged, what I mean is they're kind of in your face about it. Like, no, we're going to change. No. We really like no. And they're upfront about it and rugged, and they're willing to fight you if necessary. The next one is rooted up in the top left, okay? They're willing to collaborate, but only the old way, okay? And that's the rooted tree, okay? Their roots run deep, and they'll move with the wind and move around, but they're not really moving too far because they're afraid to change, and they're not moving off of that. Then bottom right, you have resilient people. They're not much for collaboration, but if you tell them they've got to change, they'll say, okay, I've got this. And they'll go off on their own, and they'll figure out a way to do it themselves, okay? Now, sometimes those people aren't as helpful for us as if not, but at least they get to that spot. So they're resilient. They're willing to kind of work through that. And what I like about those people in a change process is that they give us a lot of different alternatives. Here's how it'll work here. So if you can follow a couple of resilient people, you can figure out what works in this organization, how it can work, and you can start giving examples to the rooted or the rugged to try to get them to move. Then finally there's the ready ones that kind of do it both, okay? And they pull all that together and they think in terms of, I'm willing to change, I'm willing to collaborate. Okay? Now, how do we use these data? Do you have any questions on that? I mean, there's a million 2x2s you could put together, but an easy one would be just like this. And you, as a professional, can leave here today, and you can go and you can put a list of people on a piece of paper that you're working with or that are going to be part of this change initiative that you're doing. We're doing this, and then we're going to do that. And you can plot them. You can plunk them in there to see who you've got, what's going on. I mean, we use assessments, we use, bigger kind of science and more rigor, but you as a professional can go do that today. You can do it for the leader of that group, do it for the project manager, the bigger kind of people that are kind of help the managers of that group, do it for the individuals, do it for different departments, do it for whatever. Okay? This is really, really simple. And it's, will this person change and will they work with others? And that's easy enough for you to understand. What do we do with it? What we do with it is, because we don't commit to a project plan until after we've done some form of assessment on people. Okay? We want to know what's going on. And what we do with it is we plot the group. There's some statistical mumbo-jumbo that goes into that. It's all accurate. It works well. But we actually plot the group. And then the little, you may not be able to see it, that's the green dot there in the middle. And then you may not be able to see it, there's a little ellipse around that dot. And that's kind of the error of measurement, like where the group could possibly be. Okay, so it's not 100% accurate, if you will, but it's pretty close. And what we realized from this is that now we have a little bit of data to have a very accurate conversation with our client. And we actually go into our clients, because you know how clients always are like, how fast can we get that project done? And as a good project manager, you think to yourself, 5 months, and you're thinking best case scenario, right? And that's why, projects continuously go over. They continuously go over budget. And what is it, like in the IT world, I think, that Harvard business, those articles, and what is it, like 70% of all projects go over budget, 50% of them go over budget by over 200%. Very few ever get finished on time. Very few ever get done right. And all we're doing is a disservice to ourselves. And we talk to our clients and we tell them, look, you're a 1 mile an hour organization. There's so much going on here. There's so many rooted, rugged people here. This change is going to be tough. And it's going to go slow. And we'll also tell them, here's the impediments. And maybe that impediment is you seem not willing to lead this charge and to tell people they must and to show me that CEO or that executive, sponsor commitment. Or we may say, your managers out in the field are unwilling to give feedback. We'll tell a client up front in a predictive way, because we've been gathering these data for 20 years, we've been pulling them together, we have outcomes on clients that have finished on time, haven't finished on time, are slow, or quick, or under budget, or over budget. We know what's going to happen. Okay, we're pretty darn good at it, and we're willing to talk to them about that and say, you're a 1 mile an hour company. If you want to get to 10 miles an hour, there's 5 things you need to do. And you see what I've just done? Now they're in it with me. So it's not just me, the project manager, who's putting their butt on the line for everything. It's me saying, we're in this together. And if you are willing to do some stuff for me, we can go 10 miles an hour. Or if you're a 10-mile-an-hour company and we want to go 100, here's some things that are going to get there. We're going to show you impediments, we're going to show you hindrances up front, and we're going to have a real rational discussion about timing, about resources, about budget. Because the last thing we want to do is throw out there another project that's 200% over budget and 5 months late. Why do that to yourself? Especially when it's not you. The deck's stacked against you. Okay? That's what we want to have, is we want to have that upfront real conversation with our client. Real conversation with our product owner or champion or whatever to figure out, hey, here's what's really going to go on. Here's what's going to happen. We're ready for it if you are. What's your level of commitment? What's your level of willingness to push? Where are you going to go from here? Does anyone have any questions here? How many of your clients will think they're 100-mile-an-hour clients? About 100% of them? How many are? Maybe 5% of them? Okay. This is holding up the mirror. And if you're a good project manager, there's a willingness to hold up the mirror and a willingness to talk to them and say, hey, I'll do everything. I'll commit all my time and energy to you. But if I'm running up against a tree or a brick wall, I want you to know. And I want you to know that I get that. And when they tell you, well, we think we'll do something different. And in 3 months, you say, hey, I asked you to do 4 things and you didn't do it. And now you wonder why we're running still 1 mile an hour instead of 10? Well, here's the mirror. Let's talk about it. Does that make sense? Any questions? Yeah.
So do you convert this to a probability of success in terms of schedule, in terms of budget?
You can look at it as a probability of success, but you can also just look at it as a realistic time frames. Okay, so it's not really success, because we can be successful, but maybe the success will only be here versus here. You know, because they're thinking this, and we're going to say that there's never a CEO commitment, or there's never, management commitment, or you've got 3 managers who are going to work against it. We realize that it's only going to get to here. You know, we go into organizations all the time with waterfall to agile, and some groups just smoke and go fast, and others never get moving, okay? And you can look, and there's going to be manager issues in a lot of those scenarios. And so we just want to be upfront about it. Help them understand this group will never go that fast. Or maybe they should, or maybe we should do something different. Maybe we should split the organization up. And some people do traditional, the way we've always done it with legacy stuff, and this other group gets to work on new cool stuff because that's what they want to do, and they're willing to do it the way that we need them to do it. Okay, and so this page just says all the stuff I just said. So sorry, I forget that sometimes. Oh, there it is, it's on paper. But it's a way to discuss the people barriers. There's project path and hindrance. And so maybe that's another way to look at it instead of, what we just talked about. But it's about, here's the path this project is going to be able to take, and here's the hindrances to that. And the organization has to understand the higher the chosen speed, the more effort they got to put into it. And for management, it becomes their choice, and it also becomes partially their responsibility. And that's what I want you to take away from here, is that it's always put on our shoulders. Well, how fast can you get it done? Well, I can get it done in 6 months. Okay. And you could if things went your way. Okay? And so now I'm having an equity discussion with these people. And that's the discussion you want to have. And you damn sure want to have it early, not 6 months later when your 5-month project is already over budget and you're in the 6th month of it. That's not when to have it, because now it sounds like you're making excuses. And that's the whole point. I said this as well. Now we also have the ability to plan. Okay, and the planning piece is, here's the 30% we're going to make process champions. Or maybe we pull them out and they become the initial team. Or maybe this happens or that happens. Now we start working with our clients about how to organize this project, how to maximize the people effort. And up front, I want people who want to go the direction I want them to go. I want them to be my process champions. I want them to get success stories. I want them to get lauded by the senior executives for doing such a great job and doing something cool and new. And that gets that second 30% thinking, I'd like to get some good positive attention. I want to see something good come out of this. That gets that third group. And also, because remember that blue piece of the pie? We can take a look at that group of people and say, what are their motivations? Can we find one or two common motivations across them? And can we maybe adjust our project so those motivations get met? Is there something I can do differently? Can I change the way I would have done this, given the makeup of the people that I have here? Money, maybe we have the ability to give them a bump if something happens well. Maybe, I mean, there's a lot of different things. If it's being noticed in the organization, maybe we can give them that. Maybe we can do something there. But now we can set it up so that if they do what I want them to do, they'll get what they want out of life. And then we start performance managing the bottom 30, and the plan project and project speed is based on pace, it's based on people. Keys to this process, the things I just talked about, convergent assessment, an assessment, so you can do your own 2x2, things of that nature. Candid feedback on the 30-30-30, true spoils go to the top 30. We start getting management support, or at least a discussion around for where it's going. And then we also ongoing monitor and risk this, okay? And I don't know if you're planning on it or if you're on the Agile program tomorrow, but Nathan Lagergren in my group is going to talk all about metrics, okay? So what I've just talked about is the upfront stuff, like before the project starts or at the beginning of the project. But projects still need to be monitored. They still need to be looked at, right? And Nathan tomorrow is going to spend the same amount of time at the same time tomorrow talking about the metrics that we use on an ongoing basis to monitor those things. But if we know now what's important to the organization, and that's all these 5 pieces, we can break that up into push buttons too much. We can now look at the team and show, and basically this is our spider chart. We show where they're doing really well, where they're not doing so well on the things that matter from a cultural perspective, from a behavioral perspective. And we can have that conversation and we can go at it and do that. And he's going to talk all day tomorrow about that, or tomorrow at the same time. I obviously would recommend it too, but that's it. What we found, 1, we have quicker project initiation. We have clearer paths to success. I think project initiation starts about 15% faster through this process. I think we get projects moving about 20% faster completion time. If people endorse this and go down this path, we find that project management works. It works much better than what it has in the past by adding that people component to it. And there's greater transparency. Okay, and that's the piece that's really, I think, most important, because it gives you a power base to start having real conversations with your executive sponsors about what's going on and what you need to happen. Okay. Now, what else do we do with these data? We start rolling them down, and so we may look at the CEO and his 5 or 6 direct reports. And like in this scenario, we have a CEO that's resilient and a lot of rooted people working for him. Okay? Now we can start talking about, okay, what does this really look like? And we start talking to them about their leadership shift. What is your responsibility in this project? What do we need you to do to make this project successful? And what does that look like? We may go to department level. Okay, this is a whole company kind of thing, like at Fisher Titus when Cerner came in. We could have looked and said, okay, marketing is going to be this way, but sales and R&D are going to be this way, and shipping is going to be this way. So we may decide which groups to implement in first, based on where they land on our 2x2. Okay, so we're going to start with some of these readies. R&D and operations are the first groups we're going to go to try and implement this thing. Why on earth would you start with administration if they're the most rugged and bound people, and now all of a sudden we're going to make them our pilot case because they're administration, so it's easy. Okay, no, it's not easy. You're setting yourself up for failure here. Okay, because how you're going to try and change with the group in there that has the least desire to ever change. Okay? And that's what that starts looking like. We can have this kind of planning process across organizations. We can look within a team and we can have a team discussion and talk about here's what's going to happen. Here's you 30% are going to love this. You 30% are going to be kind of all right. You 30% are going to have some real understanding now. And so we can work at that team level with the people side of this versus just the plan, process, the outcomes, all those things that we hear about in the project management world. And we can do it at the individual level. Let's have a discussion, okay? And this helps that 30-30-30 discussion if you're having it with that bottom 30, okay? So we go through these data. We have the ability to collapse them and to expand them and to focus them forward apart so that we can help from a predictive standpoint help you understand. And I think you can do this on your own with the 2x2, okay? You really can. To think to yourself, where should I take this project? What should I do with it? How should I do it? The first time will take you a little bit of time, but I think after a while you can probably get this down in a couple of hours yourself. So it's a little bit of an eyeball and it's a little bit of gut feel and you may be wrong sometimes, but you start thinking in terms of change and collaboration. Now at least you're thinking about how. How do I implement this project? How do I do the things I need to do? Do you have any questions for me? Any other questions? I mean, you can ask them along the way. Yeah?
A couple of questions. One is, to what extent do people try to game? And do you have any real data that you can show us?
Well, these are real data from real companies. Okay, so, I mean, how do we get people not to game them? Okay, I could go into a lot of detail and give you facts and stuff like that, but one, almost all of our assessments have gamers on there so we can tell. And number two, people tend to not think, when people look at these things, they tend to think or assume that who they are is actually, I mean, we don't say, how are you willing to change? Because everyone is going to say, oh, I've changed a lot. Okay, so it's not as easy as that. And so, but when you ask people, are you ambitious? Or, you know, do you want to do this, that, or the other? And the question doesn't seem so apparent. They assume that their way of thinking is the right way. So you'd have to make, so someone would actually basically have to say, you know what, I'm a mean SOB and I know that sucks, so I'm going to change myself on this thing. And not many people, even the mean SOBs, think they're mean SOBs, right? They think they're accurate or they're direct or objective. So there's science that'll prove that out, but and I can talk about that as well. As far as real data at an organization, I mean, what I've given you is a synopsis of the work that we've done over 20 years. These data up here, like these people are actual real people from a real organization that we've plotted. And if you look all the way back, I mean, it really does go along with this plus 10, this 10% mark that we gave them. And we had that. They were actually not a bad organization. They had a lot of people in the middle, but there was enough diversity, and the project was big enough, and that goes along with it. Okay, if it's a small project with 5 people, it's a heck of a lot harder than if it's a bigger project. This will work a little bit better on some of the bigger ones because you can have mass, that you can have flexibility of who does what when versus all 5 of us have to move at the exact same time and move forward from there. So it's a good question. Thank you. And if you want to talk more about it, I'm glad to. Yeah.
So you mentioned about champions with,
Uh-huh. Yeah, so her question is the bottom 30, but basically kind of right, but and the bottom 30 sometimes will be rugged, especially if you're asking them to do something they don't want to do, right? Because the beauty of it is if you're asking a rugged to do exactly what they want to do, which is a deeper analysis off of the blue chart stuff, and if you're asking them to change it and actually start doing something that they really want to do, they're some of your best fans because they're like, it's like, finally, I don't have to fight this organization and work off of that. So you're asking about another layer of complexity, which is fine, and that's good. And
well, I mean, usually my experience is that people, they're concerned they're going to get the right training, they're concerned they're going to get the right support to be successful in that change.
Uh-huh.
So sometimes, you know, I guess that's people don't want to.
no, that's fine. point, her point is that sometimes with ruggeds, does more information help, or does making it more clear, or bringing it out more, is that going to benefit them? And some, yes, because some people are rugged because they never want anything different, and they hate surprise and things like that. So not only do I sometimes take it from let's give them more information, but I help them understand what the new stuff is that I want them to do, how similar that is to old stuff they've done in the past. And that connection makes it an easier jump to them, because what the problem that you understand with the rugged is that they see any change is this huge. And what I want to do is I want to make them think that the change is really this. You've already done, you did 80% of this last month on this kind of thing. It's the same process, only now we're jumping over to here. And it doesn't work that way. Quite frankly, and this is maybe I'm getting old and crotchety, but if I have a bunch of people to work with, and this group of people is going to require very little energy of mine to help them succeed, and this group will require a little energy, and this group will require a ton, which one am I spending my energy on first? Okay, and that's my laziness to a certain extent, or as a tainted psychologist, my belief in kind of people like to do what they want to do. Ruggeds will become great cheerleaders if you can turn them. Yes, it's just about time and energy. And that's the question. And so with limited resources, not sure. With some resources, yeah. And that's why I also help them understand the jump. So let's get process champions to do it first. And then let's get them to say, look, it's not really that big of a jump. They'll know their job better than I will. They'll know that person better than I will. And they'll understand them to be able to say, if you make it look like this, it'll look smaller to them, and they'll probably bite it off. So it's kind of win. But yes, ruggeds will absolutely become rugged in your new way if that's what they want and that's the way they like it. So there is salvageableness there. And to me, it becomes, is that the first energy I expend, or how much do I expend before I start thinking of something different? So that's a great question. I agree. Any other questions? Just real quick, I want to talk a bit about you and what you value in your own role as a project manager. And I'm not sure you've ever thought about this. And if you want to give, my contact information is up here. You can come see me afterwards. We actually have an assessment of project managers that helps them understand, what they value in the role or what they don't. But people don't want to take assessment, that's fine. But you can give me a call if you want. But if not, what I've done up here is I've kind of put 3 or 4 questions up for you. So instead of sitting in a room and lighting the candle and getting there, this is a different way. And this is some of the questions that I might ask a person if I'm engaging them instead of just having them fill out an assessment. Okay? And so you as a project manager, you should really think about across your career, what's been the apex? What's been the one thing that has stood out as the coolest, best accomplishment you've ever had? And just walk yourself through that and look at it. And then what was the biggest downfall? What was the most negative thing that's ever done? And then instead of looking at, well, I'll do that kind of project, think about what's involved there. So maybe it was you were independent and the client believed in you and you and they wanted to push you farther than you thought you could go, but they supported you or something. And maybe, as you go through those questions and ask them of yourself, you can start to understand what you value in the role of project management, so you can start setting up your projects that way. Okay? Or take it or not. And I know we don't all have the opportunity to take or not take a project or whatever, but you can certainly start setting yourself up in a way to maximize some of your own expertise and abilities. Then the other piece is what do you value in clients? Maybe you're okay with a non-changing executive and you feel you have the ability, as long as you have managers that can be on board, you're okay with that. Maybe that's true, maybe it's not. But find out what's important to you. How do these executive sponsors What are their positive and negative characteristics? Or how do they solve problems and make decisions? And that's the biggest one I find that we start thinking about those people. Is it action first and no data? Is it they have to have a million pieces of data before they do something? Is it they're always shiny objecting and we will do, and going here or there? What is it that you care about or don't care about with executives and executive sponsors you work on? And then also then it's those projects you value the most. And so some of you may be about the planning and control, okay? And all the stuff I said today, like, I'm going to keep put processes together, keep planning, keep doing that, okay? But if that's important to you, then embrace that. Or are you one that wants to change culture or change environments, or someone who really likes to transform ruggeds into, kind of ready for this world, or good for this world, or turning them into champions? And how much focus and support do you need from leaders above you? As you start thinking of these, from our research and all the things we've done in the past, these questions tend to get at the heart of what do I as a project manager value? What kind of projects do I want to work on? What kind of people do I want to work with and for while doing this work? And that's a real simple way for you to start thinking in terms of what work do I want to do, and what work do I want to, where do I want to take this? Okay. And quite frankly, I mean, in the project management field, I think if you can work in areas of passion, your work's going to be far better, and that expertise you develop in that area of quote unquote passion is going to make you stick out and stand out above and beyond others. And really, you have limited time, and it's important to use your time in an appropriate way. PMs must become more business focused. There's a lot of different project management is change management. Okay, you may not believe me, you may not buy that brand, but in my opinion, it is absolutely true. The more you can get manager discussions up front versus in 5 months when the pooch has been screwed, figure that out. Define the people side and leverage your 30-30-30 as best you can. Short and quick wins with celebration. Okay, that's going to get those champions you have start to lead the charge for you for the rest of the organization. Okay, that's all I've got. Are there any questions? Yep.
Will you leave a copy of your slides with the chapters?
We'll have it up on. If you want to go to www.conversionllc.com, we'll do that. You want to call me or email me and just say, hey, I was at your thing, I liked it, send it to me. Any of those ways will be fine. We'll be glad to. I don't know if Paul's like collecting them all or what. I don't know what's going on with that, but we'll have them up on our site either today or tomorrow, and then you can get them that way as well. I really appreciate your time. If there's no other questions, that's fine. If you want to come up afterwards, we can talk for a few minutes as well. Thank you.